Nation.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. Big show today. Super excited as we have RJ Young on here to join us. How you doing, man?
It's a good week. It's a big week.
Oh, there we go. Now we got you.
Right on.
We'll start back over. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited. It's a big week.
Yeah, huge week. I wanted to start here with you. First of all, thank you for joining us. But I wanted to start here with you. You have been on this Coach Prime train really as early as we have. And you're one of the few national names out there that was believing in the Buffs before this season started. I even remember you putting the Buffs in your top 25 before the season and all the flack you got for that. So why did you believe before most people outside of Boulder?
Well, it's basically been a beat that I have covered since September 2020, going back to Jackson State. And I saw what he was capable of in that spring 21 season, 4-3, right? Really competitive team, had really great quarterback in Jalen Jones. Shedeur was not yet playing. And then I got to see what they look like in 21. And then in 22, the turning point for me was how they really beat up FAMU in the Orange Blossom Classic. Not a game that traditional college football fans hold dear, but it certainly got my attention because FAMU was such a great football team. And that game was really close the year prior. And then they go on the run that they did. They finished in the Celebration Bowl. We hadn't seen as much Travis Hunter, even though we haven't seen much of him this year. We didn't see that much of him playing wide receiver last year, and what he was able to do in the Celebration Bowl was a big deal. And then you just take a look at what Shedeur had been able to accomplish. One of three quarterbacks to go 3,700 yards passing, 40 TDs, and 6 INTs. The other two are CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams. You take into account Prime's ability to get coaches to want to work for him, to want to coach for him. And then I knew he was going to aggressively attack the portal because he's using the same strategy that he used at Jackson State. 40% grad transfer, 40% transfer, 20% high school. And he's got dudes that can absolutely play. The offensive line, defensive line were going to be what they were, but knowing what this sport is about, being able to recruit and motivate, and then you get a couple of coaches that know their X's and O's, yeah, it's not really difficult to get behind Prime at Colorado.
RJ, you just spoke in spades about Shedeur, but
To be just the beginning for this team, obviously 2 tough losses. What do you expect kind of down the pipeline from Coach Prime, just given what you've seen at Jackson State before?
Well, people were asking me what's the ceiling for this team, and I had said over and over again, I'm not going to put a ceiling on a team that's undefeated. Let's see them take a loss before we start talking about what they may or may not be. They just played the 2 best teams in the conference, according to me, right? Washington, we'll see. Washington State, we'll see. But SC and Oregon, what they were going to do against SC was going to be much more indicative of the kind of season they would have, because that's the worst loss that Prime has taken as a head coach. And frankly, it's not a dude that's used to losing. So what they were able to show, particularly down 41-14, gave me a better read of what they're capable of. They're going to feast offensively, and they're going to have a hard time defending almost everybody. But if you get into a shootout with this team, they can beat you. So I'm putting it at 6-6, but you could see them going 8-4. Certainly going bowling, which I know would be a tremendously big deal at Colorado this year. And man, maybe they'll pull off some that we don't see coming. But right now, I feel pretty good about that. I feel pretty good about them getting toward a winning season at the end of the year, and I think that would be a tremendous win.
We just saw Shedeur go toe-to-toe with Caleb Williams last weekend. Where do you think Shedeur ranks, nationally among all the quarterbacks, not just this quarterback class, but maybe next year's? Where could he go in the draft, do you believe?
The draft at all next year. As a matter of fact, I think Prime is telling no tales when he says that Shiloh and Shedeur aren't going anywhere, because you want to have those guys around because that's how he got into this. Remember, he started coaching football because his sons were playing football, and he did not like the way the Pee Wee coach was coaching his boys and said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And he's done this every step of the way. He became a head coach at Jackson State right as his son quarterback was getting to play the position. Now, as far as evaluating him for the NFL, I leave that to NFL analysts, but the scouts and personnel that I talk to are saying right now it's fringe first round. You want to see some things from him that, frankly, he just didn't show against SC. Checking a run, okay, might be the move, but you got to go get 7. And the only way you're going to get 7 is throwing the ball. You got to be able to thread the needle when people know that you're throwing the football. That's first round quarterback, right? He knows these things, but in as far as his ability to be on time, his ability to be accurate, to move the ball down the field, we're only beginning to see what that looks like. And that's with an offensive line that's given up 26 sacks. He's still passing for 350 in 3 of these 5 games. So I'm right now, I'm saying the latter half of the first round because Jordan Love was picked by the Green Bay Packers in the first round. He led the FBS in interceptions that year. So it's not about whether he'll get drafted in the first round. It's about what's the grade. How do we evaluate him for an NFL team?
As this team kind of goes through the season, more and more kind of bumps and different challenges have come across them. But I'm curious, how have your expectations for what this team's record is going to be changed from the beginning of the season to now?
I don't know that I have, honestly. I don't know that anybody's expectations save mine. I should say, nah, man, I saw him beating Texas Christian. I picked him. I ranked him in the preseason. I knew it was a good football team. I knew what their deficiencies were. And it was about, can they play to the level that I know that they're capable? And frankly, it's going to change up when Travis gets to be healthy again. We're looking at what, after the bye week, probably next time we see that guy playing football. But getting Omarion Miller to step up the way that he did, getting a Cameron Silman Craig, who's been an outstanding player at SWAC, all SWAC, played at Trinity with Shedeur, getting those guys to show what they're capable of in these big games in front of these enormous national TV audiences only bodes well further down the road, especially when you get back home. Now, this game's on the road, but I mean, I'm looking at it, and if Folsom is what it had been when they played, I don't know that my expectations are going to change. I think everybody else's are going to change again because you're seeing people kind of get off. They're moving to somebody else because back-to-back losses. But if they lose, I'll tell you what, I would be shocked if they don't have a winning season. Let's put it that way, right? Other than that, nothing surprises me.
Love it.
RJ, this week we just spoke to Coach Prime earlier today. He gushed respect, really, for Kenny Dillingham. There was obviously mutual respect between him and Lincoln Riley last week. But before that, there was a lot of coaches coming out saying a lot of negative things, really just hating on Coach Prime and the program. Were you surprised at all to see those coaches kind of react that way towards Coach and what he's doing?
I don't think I was surprised. I also don't know that I see it as hate. I see it as schools of thought, and we come from coaching trees all over. Dan Lanning is a guy that comes from a coaching tree that has Nick Saban and Kirby Smart on it. Those guys don't want to talk about it. They want to be about it. That's how you're raised to coach, right? We don't talk about what we're good at. We talk about what we're bad at. We let other people tell us what we're good at. That's not what Prime does. That's not what Lincoln Riley does. That's not what Kenny Dillingham does. But to that point, Prime acts like a younger coach. Lincoln Riley's just turning 40. Right? Kenny Dillingham is younger than I am. Dan Lanning is the outlier. He's 36-year-old acting like a 66-year-old, right? But I think everybody does it differently. And however you motivate your team to win football games is going to work. I also think that Kenny Dillingham sees Prime and sees success, right? It's a guy that doesn't have any chance of going bowling before the season starts. He loses his best player, quarterback Jaden Rashada, and he's managing to get those dudes to fight. And each way you look at it, you're looking at Colorado going, they were awful last year. And what changed? He did. Prime did. And Dillingham can find some pleasure and some solace in, okay, me being lively, me being energetic, me being authentic in how I feel. That's going to work not just for our fans, but for our team. And I think that's what you're going to have to do in this day and age, especially as kiddos are much more likely to see through you and to go somewhere else where they feel as if you're going to trust them and or care about them. And Kenny Dillingham's doing a great job of that. Not to say that Dan Lanning isn't, but different strokes for different folks.
Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. What do you see being the end game for Coach Prime at Colorado, and how long do you think that he may be here?
As long as he wants to be. That's the short answer to that question. The end game is Prime didn't get into this to not win. As a matter of fact, I think it's very important that folks understand he's kind of perfect for the sport that we have. And the reason I say that is he's one of the 5 greatest athletes to ever be born in this country. But his brand isn't winning. His brand is dominating. As a matter of fact, he'd tell you himself, hey, when he played baseball, you get Dion, right? Because hitting a baseball is really difficult, and he played in the World Series, right? But in football, you got prime time, which is another way of saying he's in it to win championships. Now, first you want to win your conference championship, but that's only because you got to win your conference championship in our sport to get to the national championship. But we also don't really respect undefeated teams. Think about that. We can have a G5 team go undefeated and they will not play for the national championship because A, we don't think they're that good, or B, you're not dominating everybody you play. And that's where he wants to get to with Colorado and anywhere else he goes. It's not enough to win. You have to win going away. You have to leave no doubt. And I think that's what he's building toward. And as far as what he's going to do next, I mean, he just got to Colorado, number one. Number two, he's only been coaching for a few years here. Can we step back, let the man cook? Can we appreciate what's going on right now before we start wondering where he's going to go?
For sure.
One last thing I got for you, RJ. I mean, you mentioned Omari and Miller. We saw Cormani McLean finally get on the field last week as well. We know Travis will be back next year. If you could kind of look into your crystal ball, say it's August, in the lead up to this 2024 season, how good do you think this team could be next year?
I would answer that by asking, how did they look against Utah? Because I think that game is really important, not just as a measuring stick for Colorado, but a measuring stick for future success. Utah is the two-time defending Pac-12 champ, and they managed to get off to a 4-1 start without their starting quarterback, and they played in the last couple of Rose Bowls. That's also a program that, like Colorado, will be moving to the Big 12, which feels wide open as my Oklahoma Sooners and Texas Longhorns going to the SEC. So if you tell me that Colorado beats Utah by a couple of touchdowns, I'm not going to be the only person telling you Colorado's probably in a good place to win the Big 12 next year, let alone put together the kind of season that everybody at Colorado has been craving. I believe it's been since 2016, had a 10-win season. And that year, Mike McIntyre won Coach of the Year, right? We're already looking at Prime as a very early candidate for Coach of the Year in a year where he doesn't actually win 10 games, which is phenomenal. But I'm really looking forward to that Utah game because, I mean, it's a rivalry game to some. It hasn't played that way recently, but them both going to the Big 12 is going to be a lot of fun. BYU being over there, it's going to be a deeper league, if not as top heavy. I could easily see everybody else doing what I did this year, which is ranking them top 25, right? And then we'll see, right? We'll see how good are they on the offensive line, defensive line. What do they do in the portal? Those things will come into play. But right now, let's see them finish the season. Let's see what they look against Utah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're all trying to pound this drum here, but we appreciate someone on the national perspective kind of seeing what's actually going on here and talking about it. So thank you.
Fellas, I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks, RJ.
All right, there he is.
There he goes.
RJ Young, awesome. Alyssa, is there any way to turn my headset down a little bit? It's so loud.
Me too.
Was this one right?
Oh, that's so much better.
Oh, that's much better for me.
Much better. Hopefully that doesn't change anything for you guys.
Yeah.
We are on a slightly different setup. As you guys can see, we're in a slightly different place today. So bear with us. But appreciate Alyssa for scrambling behind the scenes to make that work. And also, huge shout out to RJ for joining us.
Massive shout out to RJ. You all know he's been beating the drum for a minute. But of course, shout out to Alyssa, always making sure that we're going to where we need to be and sounding good. So appreciate you. Shout out to our friends though at Kind Love, guys. Kind Love is one of the original dispensaries founded here in Colorado. It's full seed to sale, farm to table. They've got tons of great stuff, man. They got the Turbo Core line that I love. I'm a huge fan of. It's a little, looks like a toothpick. You can slip it into any joint, blunt, or cigarette to instantly infuse your smoking experience. They've also got their Get It While It's Hot flower shelf, eighths for $20 out the door and ounces for $100 out the door. Visit one of our stores in Cherry Creek or North Denver. Mention DNVR and receive the DNVR exclusive discount. 25% off all Kind Love flower pre-rolls and their Turbo Joint line. You can also visit their website at kindlove.com and use that code DNVR for online ordering and their full extensive menu. Shout out to those guys at Kind Love. And then MSU Denver. Turn your goals into greatness at MSU Denver. We've got a ton of people here at DNVR who went and got their degree from MSU Denver, and you guys can too. Enrollment is open for the spring 2024 semester. Be a game changer at MSU Denver. They got 90-plus majors, 10 graduate programs, and online courses. You can do in-person or both, actually. Learn more at msudenver.edu.
Shout out to DJ Mark. So, yeah, that was really interesting from RJ, and I really appreciate his time.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask kind of some more big picture stuff just because we are so in the weeds here, you know. And if someone asks me how long is Coach Prime going to be here or what's the end game, you know, like
Yeah.
I have my perspective. I'm going to say, oh, he's going to win a national championship here
Right.
in Colorado. And I'm going to say, hey, I think he could be here for a long time. I kind of wanted to get the national feeling just because it's a little different, right? Like I think that there's a ton of people pulling for Coach Prime and rooting for Coach Prime that aren't necessarily Colorado fans. So they are going to have a different perspective on what this is going to look like in a few years. That's why I wanted to go national. But I agree with his point of, hey, let's just smell the flowers that are right in front of us and enjoy what's happening now 100%.
Oh, I think that's what everyone kind of loses track of at this point. Like, we're still only halfway through year one. Let's kind of enjoy the entire process as it unfolds, really, and stop looking at it as how long is he going to be here? When is he actually going to make his move or whatever? So I love that he said that. Let's talk about today's press conferences, I guess.
And let me just add this.
Yeah, go ahead.
The bag is coming. Like,
He was asked today.
oh, for sure. And it's going to come from Colorado, but it is going to come from every angle this offseason. I think there was this idea that, like, it was going to take him a little while to get it going and, you know, people would back off. But there are going to be teams trying to hire Coach Prime this year. I'm confident of it.
For sure.
And so that's why Colorado has to be prepared to make to pay him what he deserves.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to happen immediately. Shelley asked, why is the topic of Coach Prime leaving constantly reviewed? I think it's because people know how valuable he is. So they know that, you know, other places are going to want him.
Right.
And the other part of it, you know, from Colorado fan perspective is the last time Colorado had a promising coach, he was gone after 1 year.
Yep.
And that, of course, ended up being Mel Tucker, and I don't think that this situation is going to be anything like that. But Colorado fans are constantly thinking about it. It's in their head. It's you know, for lack of a better term, PTSD for CU fans. So I think it's coming from different angles. But I don't think it's going to be that short-lived here. And that's why I was interested in his opinion on it.
I agree. Just today, I mean, Brett McMurphy had a tweet that came out, top 25 highest paid coaches in college football. And it was more than 25. There were a few ties in there. It must have been 27, 28. Coach Prime wasn't in there. So there's room definitely for CU to step up to the table. And then on the other hand, Coach Prime, I mean, he said it after the game on Saturday, how much he loves coaching here. I know people are just going to say, oh, what else is he supposed to say, blah, blah, blah.
Coach speak.
But it feels like he posted a picture on Instagram out of his office looking at Folsom Field with the flat irons and just said home as the caption.
Yep.
So
that warmed my heart.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe he loves it here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and I don't, you know, this isn't about money for him.
Right.
You know, if he needed money, he could get it in a plethora of different ways.
Exactly.
He certainly, I think, wants to be compensated fairly for what he's bringing, and don't we all?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not all about money for him. If it was all about money, he wouldn't have been here in the first place because there was other schools that had you know, a larger budget. Obviously, Colorado's budget has increased now, and I think he's going to be compensated much more fairly in a way that they simply didn't have the money to do before.
Right. Last thing I'll say, and then we can move on. I mean, Coach Prime, when it comes to coaching his players or even picking the school he wanted to go to this last December, it's always more than meets the surface with him. It's more than just the bag and winning football games. It's about, you know, the people he works around in the facility, the young men that he gets to coach, and who he gets to bring in as coaches. So I do think that, like, there's a lot at play when it comes to him, and he's not just going to look at it as I want my money and I want it now type of thing.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. And, you know, we can move on from this now because it was just a more broad thought that I had during the interview.
Mm-hmm. All right. We talked to Shedeur and to Coach Prime today. Shedeur was up first. He was asked about the clock management stuff. Again, didn't really get too much insight. seems like he's kind of looking at it as a learning experience.
Yeah, and that's what he said. He said it's a learning experience, something I can learn from, and something that he kind of I think he's of two minds about it, and I'm of two minds about it myself. There's the part that he said after the game, which is, hey, look, I'm trying to get us in the right place so that we can be successful and we can go down there and score a touchdown, because if we don't, the game's over no matter what.
Right.
And I totally feel that too. Now, I tweeted this out, and we haven't talked since the rewatch. I tweeted this out after the rewatch. It's a little harder to watch on TV than it was in the stadium.
Yeah.
And the reason is, in my opinion, one, you realize they got the ball with 6 minutes left, and they took over 4 minutes off the clock. So, it's easy to say 2-minute drill when you have 2 minutes left on the clock. When there's 6 minutes left on the clock, you'd like to at least get it down to 3,
right?
Maybe 2.5. The other thing is you have Gus and Joel just losing their mind. So if you're watching this at home, you're losing your mind too, right? It's like stressful. Because Joel's like, what are they doing here? What another run? What are they doing? Like, what's going on? And Gus is like, I just don't get this. And like, it makes it a lot more stressful. So I actually understand a little more why my mentions the second the game ended were insane.
Yes.
With people talking about that. So I kind of get it. And I think Shedeur looks at it a little more like, okay, maybe we needed to go into that drive with an exact number in our head of, okay, if we can score with 3:30 left on the clock, they can take 120 seconds off. That'll give us a minute and 20 seconds left if if they just run it each time. And it really probably would have boiled down to a minute at the end of
right.
Well, so I think that's kind of what he said today is, hey, we just need to perfect and become a little more fluent in knowing exactly what we needed going into that drive. And I think his approach was, we need a touchdown, not we need a touchdown in 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yes. I mean, I think that was the right way to go about it. And same with you. Like, when I was tweeting through the game, I was just like, all right, we just got to get through and get this touchdown. And people are freaking out about the time left. It's like, I don't know. You got to get the touchdown for anything to even matter after that, though.
But in the end, they do run the ball 5 times on that drive.
Yeah.
And 4 of them are designed, and one's a QB scramble from Shedeur, so you don't really, complain about that one. But 4 designed runs, I get it. I get why people were so kind of up in arms over it. I just think it's a nuanced conversation that can't really be had on Twitter or any of those short form things like we just had.
Yep. I guess just last thing on that, too. You could see a lot just rewatching it. Shedeur is, like, talking to everyone on the offense, like, while they're all lined up and stuff. So I think he was telling the truth last Saturday when he was like, it's me making checks, basically trying to get the right look from what the defense has given us.
And yeah, I mean, again, when you're watching that and the clock's ticking down, you're like, come on. But at the same time, what if he gets sacked?
Right.
That's going to be way worse than him taking 10, 11 seconds up at the line trying to make sure everyone's on the same page than just only taking 5 seconds off. You lose 10 yards and 30 seconds.
All right. He was asked what he learned from the last 2 weeks. Obviously, 2 tough losses. Said, we're focused on this past week and focusing on the mistakes we made. We're now settled in with the offense and what's going on. We went through a real test together as a team with the system. Definitely seemed like it was kind of a acclimation period. Like, you have the spring and the summer and camp to really kind of, learn the offense, but it's different when you're in a game and learning in-game action.
Well, and just putting it into execution, when people I try to stay away from phrases like this, but like when the bullets are live. Right. You know what I mean? Sorry for lack of a better term. But it's just different, and it takes more timing, and there's little things you learn. Like I'm watching that game, and I'm just seeing like next chess moves, and it's such a chess game, right? And so like Sean Lewis is going to see things on the film from this week that he can add to next week, so it never stops. But the more comfortable you get in the base offense, the more you can start adding things. Like one thing I saw is the little flare kind of into the flat for Michael Harrison was working for about 4 to 6 yards for most of the game. Well, the last time they ran it, it got blown up at the line. So what Sean Lewis will now do is say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to fake that. It's going to look like it's going to Mikey in the flat, and then he's going to turn up. And watch. I bet you that it's either this week or next week or one of these weeks coming up. There's going to have a little like wheel route out of it because everyone's crashing down because they know that that's been thrown to the flat. So like little things like that is part of the chess match of offense. But like I said, you have to get that first part down before you want to keep adding layers to it.
For sure. The only other real thing I have from Shedeur is just, the game is the game is what he said. There's no real difference between road and home games from him. Obviously, they're hitting the road this week going to ASU. I said every field is 100 yards. I mean, this guy's poise and, leadership and calmness just shines through constantly.
And that's one of the crazy parts about that last drive is, people are almost freaking out because he's too calm.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
he can't be rattled. He's so in the zone that you don't ever see him look frantic about anything.
No.
And the whole game, man, I always watch Shedeur after the play, especially when we're in the stadium. It's a little hard for the one that we watched on TV, but I always watch him after the play. He never changes.
Mm-hmm.
Even on the touchdowns, he's not
Right.
crazy fist pumps. Maybe he'll throw up the watch or something after.
Yeah.
But he is not ever going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's mad or whatever, I always look at him after maybe it's the second false start, and I just expect him to roll his eyes or throw his head back. Never.
Yep.
He walks back 5 yards, gets ready to go.
Yep.
He is so locked in, so cool, calm, and collected at all times, and that rubs off on the rest of the team. The rest of the team is going to absorb that from him and become that, because when your leader is that composed, you have no other option but to be composed. If your leader's in there, anxious or nervous or anything like that, everyone can feel that.
Right, for sure, man. Coach Prime, well, first off, Shedeur was in the middle of his press conference. Then Coach Prime, stormed in the door.
I think he even said, "Let's go."
Yeah. Gave Shedeur a little hug real quick, then walked on the other side and just watched him.
I thought he was going to sit down next to him for
thought
a
so,
hot
too.
second. I was like, oh, gosh, Shedeur's going to hate this.
I thought he was going to, kick him off the mic or something, basically. All right, you're done. But Coach Prime comes up. You asked him about the love and the hate he receives. He had a great quote. He said, "The hate comes along with the territory. The love has been tremendous. Just walking out there to a packed stadium, driving into the stadium myself and seeing all ethnicities in unity. I love it. Is tremendous."
Yep. I'd been thinking about that question for a while now that I wanted to ask him, because it feels like every week he's being asked a question about the haters.
Mm-hmm.
And he always has, a good answer for that. But I felt like whenever he talks about the haters, I get so many comments in my mentions, or we see it on YouTube of people being like, "Coach, I know it feels like there's so much hate out there, but there is so much love." And I just wanted to see his perspective on that. Also, it was perfect that he walks in and sits down, and he points out that there's less people in the press
Yes.
conference room, and he starts singing, "It's a thin line between love and hate."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, this leads perfectly into my question."
It was perfect. I know a lot of you guys want to know about Travis. I'll get to him just in a minute. He said on Omari and Miller, we've got to get him the ball. On Cam Simon Craig, just said, I've coached him since high school. He's a classy individual. He's a good football player and a good person. I'm so proud of him. He's a dog. He's a go-getter. Always wants to practice. Works his butt off. Just a great kid. Leads the Pac-12 in interceptions now.
I was talking to someone last night, and I said, if I was to buy a jersey of anyone on the team right now, it would be Cam.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, friend of the program, or program, as I like to say.
Yep.
He is a dog. He works so hard. He's so nice. He's just I think Coach Prime explained it. He's like a 10 out of 10 example of someone that he wants playing for his program. And I think fans feel that way too. And also for me, I don't know. I don't get the stars jerseys, or at least the top stars.
Right.
So I always try to go one layer underneath it. So when someone sees you, they're like, "Oh, he gets it."
Yep. Ball.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's talk about it. Coach Prime gave an update on Travis. He said he's doing well. He was out at practice today, not playing, but coaching his butt off. He's one of the best coaches we have, he said. He said he's on Cormani's butt. It would be my dream and desire for him to be out until after the bye week. That gives him 3 extra weeks. So tough, man.
It's so tough, and it's just one of those things where it's you can't
rush it.
disagree with him.
Yeah.
It's he's right, and it's so hard in the middle of a football season to see the big picture. But Coach Prime always does.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the many, many, many reasons why players' parents trust them to come play for Coach Prime.
Yep.
Because he is always thinking about the bigger picture, about your life, about your career, about everything. And so it's, one part of you wants to be like, oh, come on, like, let's just get him out there as soon as we can. But the logical side, which, sports fandom is rarely logical.
Yeah.
The logical side of it says he's right.
Yeah.
We've known for a little while now that going on a plane with this injury can cause complications.
Right.
Which is a shame because he is one of the best coaches. Then you have, a home game against Stanford, which you can never say this as a coach, but that should be one that you don't need Travis.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the bye week. So if this week is out, which it clearly is,
Yep.
then it starts to make sense to you, right?
Yep.
The hard thing for me is just, we're only going to get somewhere between 20. We're only about to get 20 chances to watch Travis Hunter play, and so in Boulder. So every time we lose one, just hurts.
Yep. Also, the other thing with the Stanford game, it's a short week. Game's on Friday. So I kind of figured back, after CSU when it all went down and he said 3 weeks, you go and look at the schedule and it's like, well, 3 weeks would kind of put him on this short week. Like, I don't know. Obviously, Stanford isn't great right now, and you said it. They probably don't need him for that game. But, the bye week right there, the timing, I don't really blame him from doing it. It just sucks to see. Coach Prime was asked again about Omari Miller and him getting on the field on Saturday. He said the thing that those young guys have going against them is you have a pro quarterback who's not going to tolerate foolishness, drops, all that stuff. You rarely see youngsters who are prominent with a poised quarterback. And then he mentioned that he had a friend call him specifically to speak to Omari Miller, and then he revealed that friend was Snoop Dogg.
That's crazy. Imagine, like, you're Omarion Miller and Coach Prime's like, hey, phone's for you. It's Snoop Dogg.
Insane.
A crazy world. And a couple things really quick just because I want to tie a bow on Trav. I made, kind of one of those edits I've been making on Twitter from his show yesterday where he talked about coaching Cormani and Omarion.
Yep.
And, just it was so cool to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't really think Travis is one to, like, over-exaggerate. And so he's telling you essentially that the two players who maybe played the most important roles in Colorado coming back in the game, he's talking to them after every play or, in between every snap. And it's like, man, this guy is – his value can't even be measured.
No.
He's the best offensive player on the team, arguably, with Shedeur. It's tough with a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the best defensive player on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, he's number 1 or number 2 on the team in terms of football IQ.
Yeah.
He's coaching up these guys in terms of, like, leadership. He's 1 or 2. It's like this guy he's a
unicorn.
perfect player.
Yeah. And he's, like, an amazing person. Just the way he treated Henry Blackburn, how he's just treated this whole situation being off the field. It's pretty special, man. He was asked about Travis coaching up Cormani and Omarion on the sideline. Coach Prime was today.
He was asked if he instructed Travis to do that, which I knew the answer to that.
Well, he said Travis is a dog. You don't got to tell dogs what to do, basically.
Yep.
Then he said Travis just took it upon himself. I'm loving what I'm seeing, man. When Cormani gets his thing together, come on, man. It's going to be something to behold in the secondary.
Yep. I mean, it's true.
It really is.
It's true, and I already saw it. Like, that was one of my big takeaways from the rewatch is Cormani was, like, damn near flawless.
Yeah.
I mean, he gives up the one catch on a comeback route to Brendan Rice.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only catch he allows in the entire game. His other targets are a pass break up in the end zone, which was, like, textbook.
Yep.
And then he's in sticky coverage down the sideline when they try to go long on him.
Yep.
And then if you watch the rest of the game, he is on the line of scrimmage, press man in these guys' face, arguably the best wide receiver room in the country. Mm-hmm. And he's just all over them, like, no fear, put me in press man, let's go, and just, like, locked it down.
Yep.
To me, it was underrated. Like this, of course, Omarion Miller deserves all of his flowers this week, and he's getting them.
Yeah.
I loved his reactions in the videos of him being like, everywhere I look, I just see myself.
Yep.
It's crazy. But like, Cormani was remarkable. He was so good and so fearless, and went in there after what I assume was a rude awakening after what Coach Prime said in the presser, and just like bawled. So. We talked about this in the post-game show. I hope that kind of kicks him into gear in those regards. But at the same time, like, the dude's got to play.
Yep, has to.
And I wouldn't be I would be surprised if he doesn't start this week.
Yep. I was able to ask Coach Prime about Kenny Dillingham and ASU. We've got mutual respect again this week.
Let's go. We're
thankfully.
Back.
Coach Dillingham spoke yesterday. He just had nothing but praise. He talked about recruiting Shedeur when he was at Auburn. And just how he's developed from being that 17-year-old kid. He literally said he's just an older version of that 17-year-old kid. All this stuff that we're seeing now, he saw back then. So Coach Prime on Kenny Dillingham and ASU said, I was assembling a staff at one point in time, and he was a part of it. I know he's that guy. When I saw him get this opportunity, I was ecstatic. He's great for college football. They're building something that's going to be tremendous. You can't take that man lightly. I believe in Coach Dillingham tremendously. And then just spoke about the film that he's seen from ASU, said they fight hard. Nothing but respect, though. Love it, finally.
Yeah, it's great. We'll be down in Arizona.
Yes, sir.
Friday morning, so it'll be fun to go link up with our PHNX guys, talk to them a little bit about maybe creating some content on Friday afternoon, so keep an eye out for that. It's funny. It's funny just the mutual respect there, just because it's been a little bit of a rivalry online.
We'll see how the rest of the year goes. He was asked about just this weekend's game, and it's already receiving less attention than the previous few weeks. Obviously, you just played Oregon and USC, and now you go down to ASU. He said, we could care less. We're going to be on somebody's television, I promise you that. Doesn't matter if we're on a national stage or not. We are national. The challenge and the goal this week is to win that first and second quarter, basically get off to a hot start. Shedeur kind of talked about that too when he was up on the podium also.
Yep. I made a joke about this last night about being on the Pac-12 network. A lot of people took me seriously. I wasn't being serious. If you want to watch Colorado this week, you can go to fubo.tv/DNVR, get 15% off your first month from Fubo. That's just a little plug there. And then add the Pac-12 network to your package at Fubo. It is a little different though. Like, for example, Dwayne Wade isn't going to be able to just pull this up the way that he did. Like, when he said, "I got off the plane and I watched TV on my phone for the first time ever," or whatever. Like, that's not going to be happening this week. So you got to actually you're gonna have to work for it a little bit if you want to watch this week.
Just some injury updates on Savion Washington first. He said he'll be back this year, just not this week. The young man played his butt off. He was in tears on the sideline because he couldn't go back in. He's one of the kids that has a special place in my heart because he really wants it. And then on Shiloh, he said Shiloh's doing great. He's back on practice. He's back getting on my nerves.
That's how you know he's back.
Exactly. All right. That's pretty much it from today's press conference. Not many people in there today, at least compared to normal on Tuesdays.
Yeah, Coach Prime, a noticer of all the little things.
Yep.
It was the first thing he noticed, and he made a comment on the way out. He said, when people come back here next week, just make sure you tell them, "Are you new?"
Yeah. Can't wait. Shout out to Breckenridge Brewery. I don't think we have a beer of the month yet. We're still going through the decision, but Broncos Country Pale Ale, I guess so, is what we've been crushing out here. Of course, the Broncos are in season. They got a win on Sunday finally. Mixed emotions on that one, though. But Breckenridge Brewery has been doing it for 33 years. It all comes down to love and passion for making good beer. Try out some of our favorites here at the DNVR bar. Already mentioned the Broncos Country Pale Ale. They got the Mile High City Golden, Mountain Beach Sour, Strawberry Sky. Check out their beer locator at www.breckbrew.com to find a Breck Brew near you. And then shout out to Backus and Shanker. If you get hurt, they are here to help. They've been helping Colorado families win for 25-plus years. No fees to speak with them about your case. No fees while they work on your case, and no fees unless they win your case and win money for you. They help with all kinds of injury cases where you weren't at fault. Car accidents, motorcycle, rideshare, pedestrians, trucks, even if you're hurt at work. If you need to sue, smash the 222-222222 to find out if you have a case for free. Backus and Shanker wins.
From Yo Creo, I believe. They're thinking even further down the road than I am. History repeats itself. I can see Travis Hunter come back to see you and become their head coach.
I love that.
We're gonna have to make sure that during his time here, he is put on to all of the good fishing spots. Because I saw on his live yesterday, he was saying like, what are his favorite fish to fish for? And one of the ones he said was peacock bass, and he was like, you can't fish for those here. But he did also say largemouth bass, which you can fish for here. But I'm actually hoping to be able to impart some knowledge upon Travis and Coach Prime when it comes to some fishing spots that are a little more off the beaten path.
It's going to be a less chaotic off season,
Yep.
slightly, but I'm hoping we have the opportunity to actually speak to them and, fill them in on everything. All right, we watched the film yesterday. We'll kind of use this as a transition into talking about ASU as well. What were your main takeaways when you watched?
First takeaway I had is that we should have mentioned Reggie Young on the postgame
Yeah,
show. He
yeah.
was honestly spectacular. Came in, and at no point did anyone say to themselves, who is in at right tackle? What just happened? You know, like he came in and almost flew under the radar. I don't think he was ever mentioned on the broadcast.
I didn't know until you told me up in the press box. You're like, where's Savion? And I was like, I don't know. Where is he? And I spent like 5 minutes looking for him down there with the binoculars. I found him with ice on his ankle.
Yeah, it was almost just one of those things where I looked out at the offensive line and I was like, 70? That doesn't seem like a number I've seen so far this year. Who is 70? And then I saw him break the huddle and go line up at right tackle. So I was like, where's Savion?
Yeah.
He, like, seamless.
Yep.
In fact, you know, I'd have to get to all 22 and just lock in on him. Like, he might have been better. Because, like I said, there was no play where I thought, oh, man, right side really let him down there.
Yep. Look, this is a guy, we talked a lot about him when he came in here. He transferred in May. I don't have the complete story knocked down, but I think he lived in New Orleans as a kid. His family was forced to move because of Hurricane Katrina. And then he was kind of, moving around playing football all throughout high school. Got an opportunity to move back to Louisiana, I think, for community college. And then got an offer to Liberty, ended up playing there. I think he played tackle out there. Had a decent year 2 years ago, and then last year played in like 7 games. Then he just comes in to Colorado and just fits in seamlessly to the starting offensive line. Dude is a bona fide Power 5 offensive lineman.
Yeah, and I mean, they went and ran the ball really well in the second half. Like, there's a lot of reasons to be excited about what Reggie Young brought to the right side of the line. I mentioned that Cormani was even better on rewatch. Here's the other one, and we talked a little bit about him already, but I just want to talk about Cam for a second because he has this thing about him where I was talking to a friend last night, and I won't put them on blast, but they said, I don't know if Cam is good per se, but he plays really, really hard and makes big plays. And all I responded is, that means he's good.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what we're talking about here. He's a little undersized, and I think that's where we're getting that from. Like,
Yeah.
But he's making plays in coverage. You know, that interception that he had on Caleb is awesome when you get to see the back view because he goes and covers one route, realizes, okay, that route's out of the picture, peels off that, goes back and makes that play. Like, that is a big-time play, big-time coverage play. Then he's got the pass breakup on the most important third down of the game for the defense. He leads the country, or he leads the conference in interceptions. Like, he's just really good.
Yeah.
We don't have to put any qualifiers around that.
I guess my big takeaway, man, is just going back and watching it, just how we've already kind of talked about this, but how in control Shedeur was. Like, when you watch it, he's not. It's different than like the TCU game or the CSU game even, where it's just like big completions down the field, and that's really what kind of determined his stat line for the day. He was just surgical. Yeah. Just even on screens and stuff, there's a screen towards the end of the game where it's like Jimmy's waiting for it, and Shedeur kind of pumps and lets like the offensive lineman
Get
and
out there,
kind of clear out that lane, the throwing lane. Still gets it out there to Jimmy, and it still goes for like 5 yards. I mean,
I think it was like 9 actually.
he's just amazing, man. I guess I should mention too, if you guys haven't watched, but Miles Slusher was back at practice as well.
Yep.
So
And I think Coach Prime said like if there's a miracle or something he can play. Like he said it was kind of up in the air. Yeah, I mean the combination of Shedeur and Sean Lewis in the second half was beautiful.
yep.
They scored touchdowns on 4 of their last 5 drives, and this one just killed me because I remembered it and I was thinking about it after the game, and then rewatching it, it was just painful. It should have been 5 out of 5, and we're talking about overtime. There's the drive we talked about, Omarion, and he makes the turn up the sideline and he gets grabbed by the ankle. Like that just
Right.
happens, right? And then a couple plays later,
Yep.
it's a beautiful play action fake, and you've got Zay Weaver on a corner route on the right side, single coverage, perfect throw from Shedeur on the run, and he just catches it and starts to turn upfield, and good play by the DB, reaches in and knocks it out. And it's like, man, if either one of those, if Omarion steps out of that and goes to the crib, or if Zay is able to just catch that ball, move the chains on, I think it was actually second down, but they didn't end up getting the third down, move the chains, and now like they would have been at the 25-ish yard line going in, like the way that Sean Lewis and Shedeur were in lockstep in that moment, like they're going and scoring that touchdown. And so that was painful for me. But, you know, Sean Lewis has taken a lot of heat, and he's even taking heat for what Shedeur said was his fault. And, you know, usually that's just a quarterback being a quarterback. Maybe it's a little bit of both. But he was dialing it up for really the last 22 minutes of the game. It was almost like just one thing after another, bang, 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 good play call, good play call, good play call, one after another, and it was so just fun to watch. And that one drop, or if you want to call it a pass breakup, I think it's probably more fair to call it a pass breakup, just stops us from talking about, okay, they score with 9 minutes left to make it a one-score game. Then if they get that same stop that they got after turning it over on downs, so it was third down, then they had to get the fourth down. If they get that stop after turning it over on downs just after a kickoff, now that drive, that 6-minute or that 5-minute drive that they take to make it a one-score game is to tie the game. And I almost was like getting way ahead of myself, thinking maybe if they got that, they would have just gone for 2 with how good Shedeur is playing. Just like let him make one more great play and win the game.
Sure. I guess we can kind of use this as a transition to ASU if you want. But Sheila Stoutmeyer, Carter's mom, posted yesterday that he's going to play this week. He seems like he's on the mend. But just offensive line, I said this in the postgame, man. And Tyler Brown said it 2 Saturdays ago when we were watching the game. Running the ball is the mentality. And it seems like they've kind of recaptured that mentality. And they're playing with that confidence, that swagger that they had in week 1, week 2, you know, like week 3, you got a little scary. You went down early to CSU. You had to have that comeback. Obviously, week 4 was tough against Oregon, but I feel like this team really found their stride at the end in the second half against USC, and ASU better watch out because I think this team is getting healthier. They are still quite banged up, but just you're seeing these freshmen come out on the field now. Like this team is just starting to pick up, I think.
Yeah. And shout out to Anthony Hankerson for really having a great game running the ball, and I think that just unlocked so much. We really got to see, like I said, that the last 5 possessions are like this offense. I don't need to say at its best, but certainly the best we've seen it so far.
Yeah.
And like you said, there was kind of a little lull there. So, you know, there was a commenter last week who mentioned 40-40, 40 runs, 40 passes. You pulled the stat today. It was 45-45.
Crazy.
And I'm sure some people would like 5 of those runs to come off and make
Sure.
it 50-40. But that was balanced. That was keeping the defense on their heels. It was making them guess. It was hitting them with play action. Like I mentioned, that Zay catch, or the Zay almost catch, is a play action where you get the safety out of the picture, you run the corner out. Like, it was just so nice to see them kind of clicking on all cylinders.
Just a few things on ASU. It seems like Trenton Bourget is going to be the starter again. He was the starter last year when they played them. He started last weekend as well. Obviously, Rashada was the opening day starter. He gets hurt. Drew Prine came in, I think, 2 weeks ago. He actually played pretty well. I don't know what's exactly going on there. For those of you who were around here last year, Jordan Tyson's not expected to play. He has been practicing, but it sounds like he's not going to be able.
He has been practicing.
That's what Totri told me.
Nice. Good for him.
He said it's been kind of off and on, though. So
Okay.
We'll see.
I know he had a lot of complications with that injury, so
Yeah.
might be one of those things where it swells or on him or something like that. But always wishing the best for Jordan.
Yep. Elijah Badger's a beast on the outside. That's a guy who could give them problems, but, with Cormani and potentially Carter coming back, I do like CU's odds there.
I have to say, genius idea from David in the comments. Travis and his girl can just drive to the game.
That is true.
It's not.
That's very true.
It's a 13-hour drive. It's actually pretty beautiful through southern Colorado, New Mexico, and northern Arizona. So there you go. We need Coach Trav.
Yep. But it sounds like the guy that we really have to worry about, Ryan, is Scatabo, the running back. This guy was their leading receiver last week, was their leading rusher. He even threw a pass. And then the game against USC 2 weekends ago, he was basically the reason why they were in that game as late as they were.
Yeah, he might have been their leading receiver in that one, leading rusher, threw a pass, and kicked a punt in that game.
Yep.
He's like a modern day Wizard White. So yeah, you gotta keep an eye out for him. It's gonna be a big challenge for the front seven. This is the biggest back they've had to face for sure, or at least toughest. I think also biggest. He is a bruiser. Like, he wants to go out there and just run through you, and they haven't faced a running back really like that so far. So it's gonna be a challenge for them, but it's kind of one of those things, like, he's the head of the snake.
Yep.
You cut off the head of the snake and the body goes too. So it's a challenge, but at the same time, they're a bit one-dimensional. And they do have some good players on the outside, but at least in the games that I've watched, they're not doing a great job of letting those guys eat.
I guess
Also got to watch out for Jalen Conyers.
Yes.
Friend of the program.
Well, he had his breakout game against CU last year.
Yeah.
3 touchdowns, I think 160 yards, was an absolute beast.
He's huge, too.
He's massive. But this is a hungry team, man. They haven't won a game since week 1, and that was a dogfight. They had that weird, I can't remember the word, like the dust storm that came in. Haboob, right?
I think you got it.
That came in, kind of disrupted the game. It ended at like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, our time.
Oh, I was in London for that.
Yeah. I remember staying up and watching that game, too.
Yeah, I was up watching it, too. It was crazy.
They won that game 24-21. They lost to Oklahoma State, lost to Fresno State, actually got shut out against them. Had a bit of
you're talking about this year.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking of last year.
No. Bounced back a bit against USC. They just lost to Cal last weekend. So, man, this should be a game CU wins, but I just have a feeling that ASU is really going to fight this week because they have not had the taste of victory for a while.
Yeah, and someone in the comments said they're better than their record suggests. Don't overlook them. I don't think it's possible to overlook a team after you've lost 2 in a row, right? But I guess it is. They are better than their record, I think.
Yep.
They've got good talent. They've got good players. They've got at the very least, intriguing young coach that when we both came away from watching the ASU USC film, it was like, dang, he dialed it up.
Oh, he can draw up a play.
Yep. So it's going to be a challenge for sure. CU has had a lot of struggles in that stadium, although you could probably say this about any Pac-12 team.
For sure.
They struggle in all those games because they weren't good. But this one will be big to not only get another road victory, but just get rolling, get that win back. Now you go up against Stanford. You have a chance to get to 5-2 going into the bye week.
Yep.
And expect to be a better team out on the other side. Like, this one really is the catapult for the rest of the season.
For sure. The line is about CU. We're favorites this week, so CU -4.
Is that it?
It's fluctuated. I've seen it as high as 5.5 or 6 in some places.
5.5 is the highest.
I think it might have settled down around 4.5 though, just depending on where you get the line. Total around 60. The line I see is 60.5. So we'll talk about this game a lot more moving forward, obviously.
4.5 right now at DraftKings.
There you go. All right, shout out to our friends at Game Time. Guys, this weekend is going to be a prime opportunity to come watch Coach Prime and the Buffs. If you're anywhere near Phoenix or just want to make a trip to a warm weather city while we start to cool down here, hit up Game Time, man. Not only do they have the best tickets for this weekend's game, but for any game wherever you are, concerts, events, all that good stuff. They're just the best. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code DNVR. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
You can get in the stadium right now at Arizona State for $93.
There you
That's
go.
the cheapest ticket I've seen for a CU game all year.
Yep.
And as Brian Howell told us in the elevator, this is the first game all season that, as of now, isn't tracking to be a sellout, which is good news for you if you're a consumer trying to go to this game. You can also still get tickets through us, which are actually cheaper than all of these.
There you go.
So you can get the ticket and tailgate package from us for $140, which, that's essentially what you're going to pay just for the ticket, especially because ours are in section 17 on the first level.
Beautiful.
So right now, those are over $100 just for the tickets. Plus, you get it all you can eat, all you can drink tailgate. So hit us up. We'll put the link in the description to be able to come tailgate with us at Fat Tuesdays, which is on Mill, right down the street. The tailgate starts at noon. I want to be down there on Mill, just bopping around even before then. So it's gonna be a fun day.
And section 17, end zone view. Beautiful, man.
I know, and I even
love that for y'all.
I even think they're when you're in the end zone, you actually want to be higher up. You get too close, you start not knowing how far runs go for.
Right.
So I think they're a little bit up, which is nice. But good tickets, great tailgate. Come hang out.
Can't wait to hang out with a bunch of y'all this weekend. Let's do questions.
Also, hit us with a thumbs up. Let's try and get to 400. I'll be conservative.
And subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We would also appreciate your 5-star review.
Yeah, you guys have helped us jump into, obviously on YouTube, we're number 1 in the company. But on podcasts, we weren't. We were actually like 10.
Yeah.
We got all the way up to 4, and then obviously we opened PHLY. The Eagles jumped us. Now they're 4. We're back to 5. So help us get up there. Let's try and get up to number 1 in that as well.
Yes, sir. MC is first. How is ASU Stadium? I've been to it once, but I'm betting you've been to it more than I have. So
I would call it average.
Yes.
It's not. It certainly isn't bad for any reason.
Right.
It's on the newer side. I think I remember they have like actual seats around. So they've got some good spots. Big. It's kind of cool. It's like carved into a mountain.
Yep.
Which is cool. And then lots of space around the stadium.
Yes.
In terms of parking lots and things like that. And it does bump right up to Mill, which is like the main place where everyone hangs out. So I call it an okay stadium. Why I don't like it is I believe it was built to be a pro stadium. Or it was built for another reason. And so it's too big and kind of like, maybe the word I would say is cavernous for a college stadium. Obviously growing up in Folsom, I love that intimate, right on top of you feeling of a college stadium that you never get in the pros. So ASU lacking a little bit in that area. I think it has a track around the field too, which is always the worst because it means you're further away.
Yeah.
So it has its ups and downs.
Fun stat I just found out.
Okay.
Coach Prime won a Super Bowl in that stadium.
Oh.
Yeah.
That would have been
Super
a good
Bowl
one to have
30.
in the bag today.
The Cowboys defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-17 in that stadium.
Man, see that, like, going to an event that big at that stadium would be sick.
Yeah.
And maybe the Prime effect, gets more Buffs fans in the stadium. Of course, we know it's going to do that, but also gets them, a few more fans out there as well, just to see what's going on, and we get a nice atmosphere in there. Every game I've ever been to in there is like CU was terrible, and their fans don't really care.
Yeah.
So it's it's half empty.
Yeah, I went for I can't even remember the game. What's the bowl game they play in that stadium? Do you remember what it's called? It's not the Sun Bowl.
Fiesta Bowl was there for a little while.
No, it's a lower tier one. Anyways, I saw Michigan play K-State there one time, and I don't know. It was in December. It wasn't like freezing, so it was nice that it was in Arizona. But yeah, average stadium, I'd say.
There we go.
Pete, RK, and Jake, who are going to be starting safeties with Slusher coming back this week. I'd say Shiloh is more of a lock to come back than Slusher at this point, from what we heard today.
Yeah, I don't think Slush is coming back if I were to just guess. It would be nice to see him out there, but I would still say it's going to be Shiloh and Trevor. And then that, if Slush is back, he'll kind of play in that third spot, rotating in with Cam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about this in the car, man. Safeties, we knew they were deep coming into the season, but they've proven they can play. Rod has proved he could play. Obviously, Slush has proved he could play as well. I would probably say the same thing. It's probably Shiloh, Woods, and then Cam. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Rod rotating in it all as well.
I like this next one. Love to hear RK rank his top 5 Colorado head coaches in the post-national title era. All right, so let's just get the names out first. Rick Neuheisel, Gary Barnett, Dan Hawkins, John Embry, Mike McIntyre, Mel Tucker, Carl Durrell, Coach Prime. All right, it's going to get hard at the bottom of this.
Well, we know who's won.
Coach Prime, number 1.
Yep.
Gary Barnett, number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Mike McIntyre, number 3. I mean, I have to separate what we now know.
Yes, of course.
And probably put Mel Tucker number 4.
Ooh.
Just, I got to be honest. Neuheisel is kind of, I don't really know anything about Neuheisel other than he left for the Washington job.
Had a 70% win percentage, though.
Yeah, I was going to say he might have to be in there in terms of success. But for me, since this is my list, I'm putting John Embry number 5, even though he probably has the worst winning percentage of anyone. Because he was the first coach I ever covered. And, I was a kid, dude.
Yeah.
I walked in there at, 18,
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Yeah, and I remember the first day I came in with a notebook with all the questions I wanted to ask written down on there. Not only was I young, but I had no guidance.
Yeah.
I was hired by this guy who didn't even live in Colorado and was running this site that was actually making money, but he was doing it remotely, and he was just hey, go cover the team. And I was just okay. He's I'll give you a couple $100 a month. I'm great. Sounds awesome. And I showed up having no fucking clue what I was doing. And John Embry was so gracious to me and just treated me like an adult, and was even not really nice to me off to the side and gave me some tips and things like that. So I'll always respect John Embry, who is to this day one of the best tight end coaches in the NFL.
I was going to ask, do you know where he is now?
Miami.
Yep.
I saw him on the sidelines when they were cooking the Broncos. Everywhere he goes, dude, their tight ends are good now. I guess Miami isn't using it that much, but he was the tight ends coach with the Browns when that ran Gary Brundage or something randomly became a Pro
Gary
Bowler.
Barnage.
Yeah. He just goes around he's coached George Kittle.
Yep. Niners 17-21.
Yeah. So I got love for John Embry for sure. That staff was fun to cover at the very least. And yeah, I'm separating everything that happened with Mel Tucker afterwards,
Obviously,
including the way he
right.
left.
Yeah.
But just in terms of being a coach,
Yeah.
dude, we were like the prime effect is on a whole other level. But we were turned up about Mel Tucker.
Mhm.
Like, there was this game against ASU. This is the last time they won at ASU. And Mel wore shorts on the sideline. It's like, when have you ever seen that?
Never.
And then they won. And so like, we're like losing our minds. Like, damn, like he just walked out there in shorts, didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Coached them to a win. Like, we were hype about Mel. Which is why there's so much hate for him now,
Right.
even before, the mess that he just got himself into, was because, everyone was really excited and then got really hurt, which is why, circling it back around to a topic from the first segment, when Coach Prime was hired, I was like, I'm not doing that ever again.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, if he does leave, when he does leave, I'm sure it will be with a lot more dignity.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I'm not going to do this. Like, I'm just going to be thankful and grateful for whatever we get because we were about to die.
Yep. Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of Carl Durrell being fired, and just going back and watching that show. And
1 year?
1 year, bro.
And then I looked.
We were right in here.
Yep, I looked at our show from the next week. So we did the emergency show that got like 1.1 thousand views, which was a
Right.
lot for us back then.
For sure it was.
The show the very next week got 285 viewers,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, we have over almost 100 more likes than that right
Yep.
now. It got 5 likes, 5 thumbs up,
And 3 of them were probably us.
and I was watching like the whole first segment. There were 0 people in the chat the whole
Yep.
time. So crazy how what can change in a year's time.
It's wild. Robert, should the Buffs look to make additional subs on both lines to see what others can do? Offensively, I don't know who else you'd really plug in there.
I'll say this: anything to generate a better pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Tajay McCoy deserves a look.
Sure.
We're seeing freshmen walk onto the field and make an impact, all over the place right now. So maybe a freshman can make an impact there. But that was a tough thing about that game is just they didn't even really put Caleb in positions to have to go make plays with his feet because he was just standing in there. Like,
Yep.
the one that he did make, obviously to Taj Washington, was like he had already been back
Absurd
there for
throw.
about 5 seconds before he even started to scramble.
Yeah.
And I felt like, looking back, he was just flexing that he could make that throw because he had plenty of time to just set his feet and throw it to him when he was wide open after just running around for 5 seconds. But that was an unreal throw. They have to rush the passer better, especially this week against a less mobile guy than they faced the last couple weeks.
Well, and I guess just to go back to the last segment, talking about takeaways from the film, they were using that corner blitz a lot. And I think it was the first Brendan Rice touchdown. Cormani's blitzing, and he gets his hands up, and Caleb barely, misses his hand. Cormani could have had a PBU at the line there. And then, of course, Cormani blitzed, so no one's really covering Brendan Rice. It's a safety over the top. He ends up running in. But, we saw Omarion Cooper with the sack. They were getting pretty exotic in their looks in terms of blitzing Caleb. So I think that Coach Kelly is really starting to get into his bag and is getting really adventurous in terms of how they're going to try and pressure the quarterback. Because as you said, there's no edge presence.
When you watch the slow-mo of Omarion Cooper's sack, it is remarkable that
It's
Caleb
crazy.
Williams held on to the ball. I don't know how he did. Like, you even see the ball loose, and one of his arms is pinned to his chest, so it's like he somehow, it fell out, and he somehow was able to grab it with his left hand.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It almost honestly looked like he gripped the ball against Omarion's helmet,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And that's how he held
Good on
on to
him,
it.
I guess.
David's asking, who is ASU running out at QB with all their injuries to Drew Pine? Sounds like it's going to be Trenton Bourget. So
Did he come out of that last game healthy, though?
I think so.
Okay.
I was talking to Totri. He said he thinks it's going to be Bourget.
Okay.
Though, so.
Makes sense.
Eric, doing a tailgate at UCLA at the Rose Bowl.
We are looking into it. Still got a few weeks here, obviously. So we will let you know. I'm hoping so, though. The Rose Bowl is a little different. It's very different from what we're going to at ASU this week because ASU is just right in the mix.
Yep.
Rose Bowl is kind of secluded, which makes it a little harder for us. But I would say there's a decent chance that we'll be doing a tailgate there.
There you go. Final question from Garen. What bowl game would you like to see to play in and opponent? So I'm trying to find here the Pac-12 bowl tie-ins. It's kind of here we go.
Okay, so you've got the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl.
Versus the Mountain West team.
We'll pass on that one. The Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl.
Versus the Big 12 team.
The San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl.
Against the ACC.
The SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. Ding, ding, ding.
Versus the SEC.
The Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
Versus the ACC.
Or the Valero Alamo Bowl.
That's another Big 12.
So obviously you'll just go for the best one, right? CU fans are a little bit scarred from the Alamo Bowl because last 2 times we've been there we got blown out. But it would be fun. Obviously it's a new day. Stop being scared of what happened yesterday. It would be fun to go up against another Big 12 team, right?
Yep, for
Maybe
sure.
you like get a rematch with TCU, or you go up against one of these new teams that you're going to play, like Oklahoma State again.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's not that, give me the Vegas Bowl.
Absolutely.
We'll go to Circa.
And it's against an SEC team.
Now that would be fun. Probably like a lower tier SEC team.
Is the Sun Bowl or Holiday Bowl held in more like regard? Whichever one gives us a better.
Are in order of their importance.
So then the Sun Bowl, if somehow FSU slips up late in the year,
I don't want that. Well,
you don't want it?
I mean,
it'd be fun.
It would be fun. It would be fun. I can't say I don't want it, but FSU is nasty.
The Vegas Bowl, obviously because of Vegas, but if you go up against an SEC team and you prove that Colorado can compete and beat an SEC team already this year, man.
The middle and bottom of the SEC is not that good this year.
No.
We saw, I think they were like 5-12 or something in Power 5 non-conference games. So, yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, being in a bowl game at all will be a blessing.
Oh, for sure.
And I absolutely believe that's where this is headed. But, you know, if they go to the LA Bowl, cool. We're back in LA. Someone mentioned that San Diego Bowl is in Petco Park, which is pretty cool. San Diego slaps.
Yeah, I love San Diego.
So, yeah.
SEC, obviously Georgia's #1. Kentucky's undefeated. Mizzou's undefeated. Tennessee is 4-1 after taking that loss to Florida. Bama's, of course, 4-1. They're facing off with A&M this weekend, who is also 4-1. LSU just took a hard loss to Ole Miss, who's also 4-1. LSU's 3-2. So I don't know, maybe a matchup against someone, I don't know, say Mississippi State, South Carolina potentially.
Thank you.
Goodness. All right.
Dumbasses.
That's it, I think. We're going to have another guest tomorrow.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah? Do you remember who?
No.
We spoke to him today.
Oh, yes. That doesn't count as a guess.
Neely will be back tomorrow. We'll be hanging out with him.
Catherine was taking care of him.
Yeah. They're out of here. All right, guys. Shout out to you, chat. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Hope y'all enjoyed the interview with RJ. Shout out to RJ as well.
Yeah, huge thank you to him for coming on. And I meant to ask him. My brain got a little scrambled as we were kind of all scrambling.
A lot of movement.
Yeah. I meant to ask him, like, are you coming out for a game? Because it would be cool to have him to the bar.
Absolutely.
We'll circle back with him.
I'm sure that's not the last time we'll get to talk to him. So.
Yep. Absolutely. All right.
Let's go Buffs.
Go Buffs.